New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, nice to have you back on Good Day New York.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
So do you think the president's speech was an attempt at restoring some credibility for what happened in Afghanistan, etc.?
Well, unfortunately, over the last 8 months, the president has made one bad foreign policy decision after another. You know, the Afghanistan withdrawal was a complete debacle, as you know, and there were a number of mistakes made there. But if you look at just all the other decisions he's made over the years, over the months, looking at, for example, re-entry into the Paris Climate Accord without requiring that China and India also adhere to the same reductions in emissions.
And by the way, those two countries are the biggest polluters, right?
They are, and the reality is that the United States and the UK are the ones that reduce the most, and yet we have to continue to do so while those who do pollute don't. So when he talks about climate change, one of the criticisms that we had was not that we shouldn't be more efficient, it's that we need to make sure it's a level playing field. He didn't even mention China in his speech. And when you think about the COVID being unleashed on the world, and there's zero accountability after millions of people have died worldwide, I thought that was a good opportunity for the president to call on his international partners to call for accountability, to call for a full and thorough investigation into the origins of COVID, and he failed to do that as well. And one of the other striking things was related to the United Nations Human Rights Council. He said he wanted to re-enter this body, but he didn't call out those violators that sit on that council, which make it such a farce. And that includes Cuba, Venezuela, China, and Russia. So I think there were a lot of missed opportunities yesterday in the speech to show strength and to really be the global leader that the United States is expected to be.
Congresswoman, I want to talk about the estrangement between U.S. and France, which is a longtime ally, that deal with Australia to drop the $66 billion deal with France for those submarines in order to favor the U.S. manufactured ones. That has caused a strain with French officials who have said that there was lying, there's mistrust, and how are things looking now? It's up in the air. So do you think that that was a bad deal that we have made under the Biden administration? I mean, that still gives us a $66 billion contract.
Well, I think it's actually one of the few good deals that the president has made or his administration has made. You know, that's what competition is about. And I think that it was purposely very appropriate for us to be making that deal on behalf of our nation. And yes, it has created some tension, but I think what has created more tension with our allies is the way we sort of just abruptly left Afghanistan, which most members of Congress and the American public want to see our men and women come home, but it was the way it was done. And we have American citizens still behind enemy lines because he chose to withdraw the military before the citizens. And there are other countries, our allied countries, who are in that same situation now. Once the United States left, you know, the NATO allies had to leave, and they also probably have many citizens who are left behind enemy lines. I think that is probably what has made President Biden look so bad on the world stage. It was a complete debacle.
Yeah, can I ask you about the Taliban? They nominated an ambassador to join the UN General Assembly. That is a request that the UN committee has to look over. In the future, moving forward, do you think that's something you go forward with? Is that best for the U.S.? Is that best for the world?
We cannot make this regime legitimate. The reality is that they are a terrorist organization. Haqqani, which is a cabinet member in the Taliban, is also a terrorist organization. This is a group that the FBI has millions of dollars in a reward leading for his arrest. We know that they are going to make Afghanistan once again a hotbed for terrorism. And I was quite shocked the other day when Secretary Blinken came before our Foreign Affairs Committee and said that the Taliban made a commitment to not allow terrorism to reemerge. That is just outrageous that the Secretary of State would be that naive. And a matter of fact, the next day, the CIA and the DIA came out and said it would be just 1 to 2 years before Al-Qaeda can reemerge in a position to attack the United States of America again. We must be vigilant. We need counterterrorism. If you saw the ISIS strike, the ISIS-K strike that supposedly killed a ISIS-K fighter and it turned out to be a civilian, it just shows you, you know, how horrific this administration has what they've done there, and also shows the over the horizon counterterrorism is not an effective means of stopping terrorism. And in addition to that, we need to secure our borders. There have been several people on the terrorist watch list.
Congresswoman, I got to ask you about something
borders.
else, because you're starting to cloud me over with all these words. Let's talk about the vaccine mandate in New York, because as you know, you can't go into a restaurant, you can't go into a fitness place, you have to show your COVID card. But you can walk into the UN on an honor system without a vaccine mandate. And now we're hearing the health commissioner of Brazil got COVID and has to quarantine here in New York City for another 2 weeks. What do you think about it? What's your feelings on this?
I think there's just many double standards. I think that's what's so frustrating to the United States of America and the Americans that are here. We're seeing so many people upset by these mandates. I think that at the end of the day, the CDC said if you were vaccinated, you didn't need to wear a mask inside. You can go about normal activities in your life, and we're not seeing that in practice right now. We're seeing mayors like ours who are basically telling 50% of the population that they can't participate in everyday society. I believe that we should be encouraging the vaccination. I continue to hold clinics, but I do not believe it should be mandated. And it goes to what you were saying earlier about the double standard. You see what's happening at the southern border, where people are entering our country and they're not required to be vaccinated. And so I feel that many Americans are upset by this, and they feel that it is infringing on their freedom. But again, I think government should be encouraging, but not mandating in this situation.
Well, there should be one set of rules for everybody. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you so much for being on Good Day. Appreciate it.
Thank you.